We are officially moving into the next chapter, which is acting part two. So, you guys, acting part one was the fundamentals of acting, looking at how to use the body, the mind, and the voice to work on skills needed to actually do performance. It all leads to here. So, using what we have learned now that we know how to use the body, mind, and voice, we can put those actually into practice by finding and performing rehearsed pieces from a script. So, as an overall view for acting, there are many ways actors can prepare for a role. Excuse me, it's late. Konstantin Stanislavski, who we actually looked at before we started Fundamentals of Acting, if you recall, he started to develop the system, or an acting technique, used by many actors to create a realistic character out of imaginary circumstances. He encouraged the actor to rely on their own personal memories and past experiences to build a character and their life around them. And that is where we get the modern philosophy for acting. The system found its way to America, particularly at the Actors Studio in New York, which is still relevant today. There are three American students of of Stanislavski, and that's Sanford Meisner, Stella Adler, her being the only one who actually studied under Stanislavski, and Lee Strasberg. A lot of them couldn't necessarily agree on how Stanislavski's system should be taught. And so they kind of branched off and went their own separate ways, and they opened their own studios, and each of them brought their own ideas to the system, different exercises and different minor little philosophies that went with how it should be taught. Strasberg then adopted the term method, and that term kind of exploded into people now studying method acting. So, how do you choose which method to study? Well, since most of the acting methods were born out of one source, they all kind of cross over and share similarities. The main end result being to produce a realistic, truthful performance where the audience forgets they are watching an actor work. So when you are, as Uta Hagen would say, when she watches a performance, she doesn't want to see the actor acting. You want it to be believable. So take your time to research the various methods before choosing which one might suit you. And that is actually the proponents for acting, for drama 1, 2, and 3. If you end up in drama, then that's what we'll study. And what I'll normally do is I'll give you exposure to a little bit of this technique, a little bit of that technique, and we kind of look at a whole bunch of styles. And then as we go through them, the actors will usually find something that works for them or what they like. So other acting methods that have also flourished and stood the test of time include Michael Chekhov, a Russian director and fellow of Stanislavski's, and Uta Hagen, who trained a lot of the more contemporary artists of today. After Stella Adler passed, it kind of went down the lane to Uta Hagen, who just passed away, I want to say in the early 2000s. A new one on the scene is practical aesthetics. This was developed by playwright David Mamet and actor William H. Macy. This is based on the teachings of Stanislavski and Meisner. Warner Lachlan also proposed a new method that kind of shuts down all these older methods, and this is intended to work for both the stage and the screen. But we're not going to go through all of these today. That is actually for drama 1, 2, and 3. But you're welcome to look them up. There's a lot of resources on the internet if this is something that you're really interested in looking at. Let's start with a monologue. Most actors have a number of rehearsed monologues in their back pocket. What that means is if they were ever in a situation where an opportunity was presented where they had an on-the-spot audition, they'd be ready. You're traveling out to see family and you're in an elevator at your hotel and boom, there you are. Steven Spielberg is standing right there in front of you and he says, "Oh, you're an actor, show me something." I'm sure you have this from parents and family all the time. When you say, oh, I'm in performing arts, or I'm a dancer, or I'm a singer, and they say, oh, you're a singer? Sing me something. And then you don't have anything ready or prepared. That's what this should be. You should have monologues ready. That's the actor's shtick. So actors generally have what we call two contrasting monologues in a variety of combinations. Two contrasting monologues is what is most asked for at a college audition, and sometimes asked for in auditions for actual jobs. So what that means is for two contrasting monologues, you might have one comedic monologue and one dramatic monologue. Or you would have one contemporary monologue, which means something from 1920s to present, and a classic monologue, which is anything earlier than the 1920s, which could be from the Greek era, from Shakespeare, or something old, pretty much. You can switch those up, and maybe you have a comedic contemporary or a classic dramatic, or maybe a dramatic contemporary and a comedic classical. So you can switch them up with whatever you may need at the time. How do you find a monologue? Where do you get this from? Well, the true method is to read plays. Just read plays, and read plays. And when you find something within the play, you save it and you use it. The problem is that plays are copyrighted, so you won't find a lot of digital versions of plays unless you have a subscription to something. So you need to go to a bookstore to find plays or online to purchase plays. And it can run into a lot of money if you're paying $12 a book to get the plays to come to you, to read it, just to find that there's no monologue in there for you. Or if you hear of one, then you want to grab the play and read it. So reading plays is very time consuming. How fast of a reader are you that you can sit there and read full length plays all the time? So that is one of the dilemmas. If you go onto a forum where you say, "Hey, I'm looking for a monologue," all the acting snobs would say, "Oh, go read a play." Um, but that always isn't you know the fastest way to go about it. And we tend to like to look for the shortcuts. So then there's monologue books. These are books where people have already compiled all of those monologues from plays together. Now, there's two types of monologue books. There's the monologue books that use works from published plays, and then there's monologue books by people who are just trying to make money off of selling monologues, and so they just make these standalone monologues. The problem you have with that is that with these standalone monologues that somebody just decided to write because they wanted a really good monologue, there's no backstory there. There's no history. There's nothing that the actor can use in the midst of a story to help them build their character. And most of the time, they're not approved for competitions and they're not approved for college auditions. They can be used for fun. The next is monologue websites. And that's another challenge because of copyright infringement. You're going to find a really hard time finding those monologues from published plays on websites. So you will see a lot of websites that have Joe Schmo's monologue or monologue blogger. And these are people who like to, write monologues, put them out there, and most of them aren't good. And if they say teen monologue, what you're mostly going to find is, whiny teenagers lamenting over something trivial. And there's not a lot of good meat there. So this means you have to do a lot of reading. You have to check out these sources, and it just takes time. So how do you pick a monologue? Once you've gone through all of these, how do you pick it? Well, first of all, don't pick the first thing you read, or don't skim through a couple and then pick the first thing that stands out to you, because you're limiting what possibilities are out there for you. Also, don't pick the shortest one. It's really easy to look at a really good monologue, but it's long, and then an okay monologue, but it's short. Um, there are some really good short monologues. There's some really good long monologues. Don't pick it based on its length, unless you're doing it for a college audition and they say it needs to be 30 seconds, or I'm sorry, a minute to a minute and a half long. You also don't want to pick one that is a character way too old for you. Um, you don't want to pick somebody in their 60s and you're obviously way too young. Yeah, in high school, when we do plays, people are, teenagers are always playing old characters, but out in the real world, that they won't accept that. What you do want to do is find several monologues that you like. So read a whole bunch, narrow it down to maybe 3 or 4, and then choose from there. And what you might find is when you find those 3 or 4 monologues that maybe you like two, so choose one for now and then go back to that other one for later. And you'll notice on my bookshelf in the classroom, there's post-it notes in a ton of the books because students will read things, find something they like, and then they'll write their name on a post-it and save it. What you do want to do, one of the things you do want to do is you want to pick one that meets the requirements for the length. So like I said, college auditions are 90 seconds. That's a minute and a half. But for competition, you have up to 7 minutes. So what do you want? For this particular exercise for you guys, I'm going to let you go however long you feel. Anything from 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 3 minutes should be plenty. Um, and you'll be able to know how much you can handle. Don't pick more than you can handle for this exercise. You also want to pick a character that is a believable age for you. You're a teenager, but guess what? There's hardly any teenage monologues out there, except for those cheesy ones I mentioned. So what you want to do is find somebody who's either a teen in their 20s, and you can probably push yourself to do early 30s as well, even though you don't know what it's like to be a 30-year-old. But I wouldn't go into trying somebody who's in their 40s or older. Don't go into choosing a monologue thinking you want it to be extremely emotional with hysterical crying or screaming. I think there's this misconception that, you know, crying on cue and getting really loud and screaming actually adds to the dramatics. Sometimes it can be forced. So don't go into it thinking that that's what you want to do. Find something that you can understand, that you can relate to, and that you can speak believably. Sometimes less is more. Also, you want to avoid shock value like profanity or vulgarity or dark subject matter. Number one, in the classroom, I make you change the language anyway. This is still high school. When you get to college level acting, there's no holdback. You could say anything. Same thing with the vulgarity topics. As much as I would love you guys to do mature topics like that and mature subject matter, we're still high school, and I have to stand by that. Also, dark subject matter. A lot, unfortunately, sometimes monologues can just be what a human is experiencing and somebody going through some sort of conflict in their life, something that they're trying to work out externally by speaking it out loud. It doesn't necessarily have to be something dark. Although I do find that a lot of my upperclassmen start to push themselves a little further when they get older, and we start getting subject matter like, abortion or rape or abuse, or alcoholism. And while those are okay, you also have to make sure that, one, can I perform this in front of an audience? If this is for a showcase, we wouldn't put something like that up in front of a live audience. And it may only be used for classroom or competition. And two, if you told your parents that you would be doing it, how would they feel? So, we got to keep that in mind as well. What about gender and race? So Monologues are usually broken down into male monologues and female monologues. But, you know, that isn't always the case for everyone. So feel free to, if you're a female and you find a really good male monologue, do it. As long as it's it makes sense and it's believable for you, and that there's nothing in the script that has something specific towards one gender or another. Um, Also consider, would you be believably cast in this role? And then times have changed, but the industry and the material is slow to catch up. So you'll still see that male female in the books. And you won't find a lot of um, homosexual characters or transgender characters. They're just starting to come about in the literature. So keep that in mind as you're searching, but feel free to find something that you feel comfortable with. Um, Also, with race, most characters can be any race, except for if you're doing a specific piece that takes place in a historical time period or where the character is labeled to be a specific race and you are not that. So find something that's appropriate to you. Okay. In the classroom, I have a lot of plays. In the classroom, I have a lot of reputable monologue books and scene books. But we're not there right now. So in my drive, I pulled a lot of material that you can look through, and you'll see the link below. Take your time to go through it. It's kind of messy. It's not really organized in there, but see what you can find. When you find a monologue you like, you want to look up the play it came from and find out what is happening. Who is this person? So you learn as much as you can about their backstory. When we get to memorization, which will hopefully be at the end of this week after everyone has picked their monologues, you want to read it over and over and over again. Think about how you learn the lyrics to a song. You listen to the song over and over and over again until it's stuck in your head. One of the other ways you can memorize your lines is one line at a time. So what I like to do is I like to take a script and then read the first line. It's a really nice day today. And then I would say that over and over again. It's a really nice day today. It's a really nice day today. It's a really nice day today. Then I cover it up, quiz myself. It's a really nice day today. Then let me look at the next line. I wonder if the birds are going to come out. I wonder if the birds are going to come out. I wonder if the birds are going to come out. And then I go back to the beginning. It's a really nice day today. I wonder if the birds are going to come out. And then you just go line by line by line. And as you get one, you go back to the beginning and work your way down. To me, I feel like this is one of the most thorough ways to learn a monologue. Not necessarily a scene, but definitely a monologue. You can also record your voice saying it and listen to it. So that's like how you would for a song. Um, Most phones nowadays have voice recorders on it. So record yourself saying the monologue, put your headphones in. When you got a 40-minute bus ride, you can listen to that baby over and over again. Work with a partner, have them quiz you. So after you try to get off book, you can give your script to a family member or a friend and have them test you. You also want to visualize the words on the page with your notes. So if you write, I'm really upset here, or, I'm trying to get somebody's attention, as you write notes or you underline things or you circle things, we call that marginalia. And that's something that I kind of show with scoring in drama 1, 2, and 3. But look at the words on the page. If you're a visual learner, sometimes imagining what paragraph you're on can help you find yourself get, back on track if you miss a line. Know your character's train of thought. Understand what they are saying. So you want to look at what they're saying and think about, all right, in the beginning, I'm talking about how my day was going. And then I start to question my relationship with, so and so. And then by the end, I realize I have a crush on him. So look at the sequence or the pattern of the character's thought. What are they working through in their brain? And what order is that? Sometimes remembering keywords or phrases, particularly at the beginning of beats or paragraphs, can help you. Beats is something, again, we go through in drama 1, 2, and 3. But it really is like the rhythm of it. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to cover those. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me later on today.